The death of generic content. No, but in all seriousness, content right now, information is commoditized. There's a bajillion how to's. People can literally go onto their flavor of AI and find any information they want within seconds to maybe minutes. And as creators, dude, we can create any information that we want pretty much within minutes at this point. And so it's not just about getting out there and teaching more content and just being like, here's how to lose weight. Here's 3 tips for X, Y, and Z. It's like that stuff is freaking long gone. And if that's all you're doing to try to actually get clients, then you are probably having a pretty hard time. And I'm going to walk you through in this video the shift that you need to do instead to where you can literally have specific communication, whether you are using the verbal word like this or the written word in terms of your copy and content and emails to get more of your ideal clients to actually want to buy your stuff. And so you probably have seen content like this 1,000 times where it's like 3 tips to lose weight, how to get more clients, 5 mindset hacks for success, right? And this is a bit general. Even if you got a little bit more specific, this is still a dime a dozen, right? The number one mistake you're making with X, Y, and Z, morning routine for productivity. Stop doing this today. This type of content is commoditized a
A thousand.
1,000%. And so, what we want to start doing instead is not just thinking about getting awareness, because yes, you could post a generic reel and you could probably get thousands to hundreds of thousands to maybe millions of views. And I've seen a lot of people do this. In fact, I've worked with a lot of quote unquote influencers or coaches that have a bigger audiences because they have really focused on generic content, but almost all of them are broke. Almost all of them have these posts that have gone viral or they have these big fluffy audiences, but they're not actually getting quality leads to want to buy from them. And the reason is they're generic. And so I want you to think about this from 2 different perspectives. First, let's talk about the just being generic category, period. So let's say you're a weight loss coach and you're wanting to attract a specific demographic. They're on a certain journey. Maybe it's like working executive moms that want to lose weight, but your content's kind of generic. You're going to be viewed as that general doctor. And we all know that if you compare a general doctor to, say, a heart surgeon, which one's going to be more in demand? Which one's going to get paid more? The heart surgeon, right? And so we can look at it from that perspective in terms of positioning and branding. But when we're looking at this from just an everyday, like how do I get more high quality leads and clients? It's going to come down to that specific communication. I'm going to give you some examples because the analogy that I love to use, that I heard a mentor use a long time ago, it's the megaphone versus the dog whistle. So, a megaphone, let's paint a scenario. Imagine you're going into Times Square, New York City. It's New Year's Eve. Everybody's out there just yelling and screaming on their little megaphones, too. You're probably going to get a couple heads to turn, maybe not the right heads to turn, and it's going to be challenging. But if you had a dog whistle and you blew that dog whistle, the only things that are going to turn are dogs, most likely. And so that's social media. That's marketing right now. If you're out there just yelling and being generic and sharing commoditized stuff, you're going to get a couple heads to turn. They're probably going to be lower quality, and it's going to be like finding a needle in a haystack to get ideal clients. But when you use that dog whistle, very specific communication, you're going to get more of the right people to turn their heads and to reach out. Does this make sense? Because this is everything. And now, when we look at this, generic content will create some more awareness. Like you will get people to see it. They might like it, but they're going to keep scrolling because it informs them, but it doesn't actually influence them. There's nothing there inherently that's changing their beliefs or their behavior that's getting them to want to move forward. Now, specific communication done right will create demand because when you can name the person's exact situation so precisely, they're going to think, how do you know me? How does this person know me? In fact, there is a famous marketer, Jay Abraham, who said, and I believe he's the one that said this, if you can articulate your ideal client's problem well enough, better than they can, they're going to automatically assume that you have the solution. So this is why when you're more specific to the problems that they have, when you're more specific to the symptoms that they're experiencing, the things that they're complaining about to their friends or coworkers or whatever, to the actions that they've been trying to take to solve said problem, to the beliefs that they have, you're going to get way more people to turn their head. So, for example, back when I was selling weight loss between like 2016 and 2020 ish, I was trying to help. I was speaking to like business owners, higher performing people that wanted to lose that last 20, 25 pounds of stubborn belly fat. And so if I was too generic, I was going to attract a bigger crowd, pun intended. But I was trying to get people that were wanting to lose that last 20 to 25 pounds of stubborn belly fat. So I would want to get specific to the actual pain and problems and symptoms that they are experiencing. You picking up what I'm putting down? I would speak to like, hey, do you think it's too late for you, or your genetics are why you can't lose that little bit of weight, or whatever it may be? And now all of a sudden people are going to be like, he's speaking my language. You get what I'm saying? And so this is the whole game. And then, of course, where there's the belief shifting part, which we'll get into here a little bit later. Now, this is the specificity gap that you have to cover. So I want you to think about your dream client right now. And I want you to think about the things that are going on in their head. Because this specificity gap is the distance between you, how you describe the problem, and how they experience it. When you close this gap, this is what's called a market to message match. So generic is like, let's say you're doing a video or you're writing a post on the 3 tips to lose weight. This is true for everyone, right? But it's felt by no one. Specific would be like, hey, here's why you regain every pound the week your life gets stressful. And in this video, I'm going to show you what to do instead. And now, of course, that is, quote unquote, the hook. In the actual video or in the actual post, what you don't want to do is just go on a huge rant on, or, a huge kind of teaching rant where you're like, all right, so you're metabolically dysfunctioned and we're going to have to do, tip 1 is workouts, it's like nobody cares. Everybody has that information. But when you're going deep and say this example into the actual insight that they need, the thing that like is the epiphany moment for them. So for example, instead of me sharing 3 tips to lose weight, maybe I'm going to talk about like, hey, do you know when life gets stressful and you're like on this weight loss journey and then all of a sudden, dude, you're just like freaking wanting to be like eating sugary foods and you wanting to drink a couple beers, maybe throw back a wine or two. Look. And then you would actually share their insight. So maybe you tell a story instead of just teaching, or maybe you attach a story to the teaching insight. So maybe you're going to say like you're going to give them an actual perspective that next time they're in a stressful situation, they can think about doing. Maybe you're like, hey, instead I want you to go outside, I want you to take a quick walk, I want you to do some breath work, I want you to pull up your goals that you wrote down, I want you to look at those things, right? And now you're giving somebody an insight, you're giving them a perspective that's going to help them be able to move forward. Does this make sense? But the bigger picture here is we want to get really specific to what's actually going on in their life. And so specificity does 3 things that when you're being more generic, it can't. A, it's going to trigger recognition. When you name their specific pain, they're going to feel seen. Like this is essentially what I'm talking about here, where people are going to automatically assume that you have the solution because it proves that you're the one, like you're the one, right? Only solution. If you're the only one in their social media feed or in their email that's speaking to them this directly, anyone can list tips, but only someone who's solved this particular problem for them can describe it this precisely. So precision equals proof. And then also, of course, if you've gone through what your avatar has gone through, if you have case studies, the more that you could show up and actually share these case studies in real time or tell your story, this is going to help bridge the gap for them. This is going to help make it to where you're giving them a multi-sensory experience when you're telling them these stories. You get what I'm saying? So now they're like, okay, this person gets me. I'm going to trust them more. And then, of course, it pre-sells the buyer. Because if you've nailed the problem for free and you're giving them these perspectives, you're not just like, work out more, eat better, right? But you're actually giving them new insights, new perspectives, new beliefs. Not only are they going to assume that you have the solution, but you're going to get them to behave differently, right? Because if we think about the paradigm of like how people like make decisions, it's going to be based off of their beliefs. if somebody has a bad behavior right now, they probably believe something to be true. And if you change what they believe or you give them a new perspective to think about the problem on, it will change their behavior. It's like, for example, in weight loss, it's an easy example to use here. If somebody's like, hey, my genetics are crap, therefore I can never lose weight. Well, they're gonna be hard pressed to want to invest, say, $3,000 into an online fitness coach. You see what I'm saying? Because they're like, well, I'm probably not gonna get the results anyway. But when you get them to change that belief within your marketing and your communication, they're gonna automatically. So if we're like, hey, let's say you tell a story about Mary who thought her genetics were messed up, and then it was in fact a hormonal issue. You help fix the hormonal issue through nutrition and workouts and your peptide protocol. And next thing you know, she's lost 35 pounds. Well, all of a sudden, this prospect is going to be like, well, shit, if Mary can do it, then I can do it, right? So getting somebody to change their belief is going to massively help get somebody to become pre-sold and want to buy from you. And here's how you can manufacture both the specificity in terms of like how you're communicating and also the beliefs you need to shift. So firstly, steal their exact words. Like literally, pull the language straight from your client calls, DMs, sales call reviews. Don't just describe the problem, actually, quote unquote, quote it. You know what I mean? Like actually share their exact words. So I see coaches butcher this all the time, business owners, period, where it's like they're trying to use their language back. And I'm just like, the example I use, my son who's out here right now, he's 6. He had his tonsils removed a few weeks ago and he had to eat like cold stuff, right? So I came up to him and I was like, hey buddy, you want to have some strawberry ice cream? And he was like, gross, no. And I was like, oh, weird. Thought you would say yes. And then I was like, whoa. Would you like chocolate ice cream? And he was like, yes. So it's like, fundamentally, I offered him the same thing, just different flavors. And so a lot of times if we just change the words that we're using, our audience is like, oh yeah. And the best way to do that is repeat back what they are saying. So if they're like, I want to be toned in, like, in your marketing, be like, hey, do you want to be toned in, and they're going to probably say yes. And that's going to get them to reach out. So pull that stuff. Literally what you could do, take your sales calls, take your client calls, screenshot your DMs, throw them into like Claude, have Claude give you back the exact words that they're using. And then you can put those into your marketing and your sales process. Make sense? Number 2 is we want to name the enemy. Okay. Specify the villain. This could be like in weight loss, the crash diet, or in business, it could be like the cold DM or the 80-hour grind. And named enemy makes the message land better and it makes it more influential. In fact, there's a book, I think it's by this guy named Richard Blair, if I remember correctly, and it's called the One Sentence Persuasion Book. And part of the formula, he says, for persuasion is throwing rocks at an enemy. And so when you can throw rocks at an enemy with your people, it's going to help them, it's going to influence them, and it's going to help band them with you. Now you're together with them, not this person that's up here preaching. Does that make sense? And so name an enemy. What is that enemy for you? For me, in this video, I'm talking about how generic content is commoditized. Information itself is commoditized. That's the enemy. We need to get more specific with our content so we can resonate with the right people. And we need to start to shift people's beliefs, not just teach at them. That's kind of the opposing forces here. And then number 3 is anchor to a moment, not just a number. So don't just be like, you want to lose weight or you want to get leads or whatever it is. It's like this Sunday night, or that you could be like, in this example, the Sunday night dread before another failed Monday. So attach it to an actual scene. So the way I like to look at this when I'm creating copy or I'm thinking about what I'm going to talk about in a video is I imagine that I have a video camera that's recording my ideal clients day to day. And this is a special video camera. It has like some neural link where I can pop it into somebody's brain and I can both see what they're doing and I can hear their thoughts, which by the way is probably the future. But the way I do that is so I'm like really putting myself into my ideal client's shoes. Because if you're a coach, the likelihood of you being, 5 steps ahead of your ideal client is pretty likely. That's probably why you're helping them in this way. And so sometimes we kind of forget what it was like. And so we want to put ourselves back into that place. And when we can like anchor it like it's a movie scene, it's a moment in time for them. it's going to resonate so much deeper and it's going to become so much more influential than if we're just trying to throw something at them like a weight loss number or a certain amount of leads. Does that make sense? So a good business example would be, instead of me saying like, "Hey, do you want to book more qualified sales calls?" You might be like, "Sounds cool," but everybody else says that. But if I'm like, "Hey, how would it feel to wake up every Monday morning and have a calendar full of quality dream clients on your calendar? No more of the inconsistent, some months or weeks you have ideal clients on your calendar. Sometimes it's just pure crickets." Imagine waking up every Monday and seeing that in there, fully loaded with dream clients, the exact number that you want. You can be like, okay, that's way more emotional or resonant. It's much more powerful. And if I had a solution that I can show you how to do that, you're going to be much more likely to say, I want that, versus the random person that's out there being like, I'll get you more high quality leads. You get what I'm saying? So super, super important. And so the catch here is that specificity feels like it shrinks your audience. This is a big problem that when I've consulted like bigger brands, bigger influencers, they are super scared to do this. But this is exactly why it works. Hence the megaphone versus the dog whistle. Generic content optimizes for reach. And you could certainly do something a bit more generic if you're like, you had trauma in high school and you want to be like the cool kid on Instagram and you really are, insecure and you want likes and followers and vanity metrics. Optimize for that for sure. But if you're like, dude, I just want to like actually like change lives and make some good money and, have the freedom that I became a business owner for, demand is created by exclusion. The person that feels called out is the person who buys. Reach was never the actual point. Now, of course, there is a world where you can have both. Like back in the 90s, I believe it was, there was a guy named Kevin Kelly, and he wrote an article called "A Thousand True Fans." And I think it's more relevant today than it was back then. He actually wrote it, if I remember correctly, for like artists and musicians and people that were selling like their art basically. And he was like, hey, if you have 1,000 true fans, people that will buy anything that you put out, you could sell stickers, CDs, t-shirts, whatever, and you can make a full-time career out of what you love. It's even more relevant today in today's market with how crazy saturated everything is. It's like if you and we just have 1,000 true fans, maybe for you it's 2,000 or 5,000 or 500. It's like, could you imagine having 1,000 clients right now? Like literally, if you actually had 1,000 true fans of people that would buy anything that you put out, do you think you could capacitate? You would probably be like, dude, I need to have like a subscription, or I need to have a book. You would have other ideas. So it's like the focus here is going deeper with the right people, having that tribe. Now, of course, like as you're doing that, you could also optimize for reach. But if you're focusing on reach and vanity metrics, the likelihood of you struggling right now or having a DMs full of unqualified leads, because it's pretty easy to put money behind some content, aka an ad, and get a bunch of leads, doesn't mean they're going to be the right ones. So it's like going for depth, building that 1,000 true fan base, and then being able to have the business, the impact, the money, everything else that you want is super high. And so the point here is stop creating for awareness, start creating demand. Generic content is interchangeable and it's now infinite. It's worth literally zero. It's commoditized. Close the specificity gap. Describe the problem better than they can. They're going to assume you have the solution. And don't just teach at them, shift their perspectives and their beliefs, give them insights, and steal their words. Name the enemy and anchor it to a moment, not just to a quote unquote number. And narrowing it isn't a cost, it's the mechanism. Exclusion creates the demand. And so if you want to see a full training that I did on this specificity system, the specificity and influence system that will turn your content into more inbound DMs, just check the link in the description below and check it out. All right. If you found this video helpful, make sure to click subscribe for some more. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And as always, get out there. Your message matters now more than it ever has before. Don't be afraid to speak it. Be seen, be heard, and be impactful.